Hello. Hi, my name's Lanya Halliday. Or actually, most of you probably have seen my full name on my discussion posts and such. It's Tamuno Lanya Ofori Halliday. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but my family's from Nigeria, so we all have long names. But I go by Lanya, so nice to meet you all. So for my paper, I wrote about water quality, and I wrote about the implications that it has on gender, specifically with women and young girls. I also touched on the class intersectionality and race, and how water is not just a gender issue but a social justice issue. I specifically outlined ways in which we can mitigate the issue with water quality. On a global perspective and also on a federal perspective with America. Um, and I really enjoyed writing about this and learning about this. I now feel very emboldened to talk about water quality, and I see it as a very crucial issue. And the UN actually changed their classification of water from a basic right to a basic need. And I think that just further expounds the importance of water quality in communities around the world. And so historically, water quality began to decrease as things such as industrialization and urbanization increase, as factories were being built and chemicals were being put into the air and permeating the environments around us. Water quality consequently began to plummet, and with women's rights movements and all of these feminist movements, there was a lot of legislation with water quality, and the EPA was established, and they attempted to regulate water more efficiently in America. But as I wrote about in my paper, there are still epidemics that happen. There are still things that happen with water quality. For example, in Flint, Michigan, many of you are probably familiar with the outbreak of lead that they had. And an article that I wrote about, Davy and Smith, touched on this. And the main takeaway that I got from it was the issues in Flint, Michigan could have been mitigated much earlier if there was a better sense of agency. There just seemed to be this sense of passivity, and the residents, the pediatricians, even the EPA analysts, the people who were stepping in and saying, look, I think something's wrong with the water here, were being ignored by the city officials in Flint, Michigan, and consequently people were contacting like Legionnaires' disease and further lead issues, and it's a shame that all of that had to happen when, if proper legislation was put in place and if people had responded sooner, it may not have happened that way. So I touched on the Flint, Michigan crisis. I also talked about the issue with fetching. So on a global perspective, fetching is a common way in which people gather water, and it seems pretty practical, but the issue is that it falls primarily on women and young girls. And so these women and these young girls, as Nagel talked about, spend about 6 to 7 hours a week just fetching water. And I don't know about you, but I barely spend that much time working out in a week. And they're fetching water, and there are serious implications with that. There's spinal cord injury. Most of them tend to drop out of high school. Most of them are exposed to poor water. As we know, in other countries, water is not as stringently regulated. And so it's just all of these negative outcomes can happen with fetching. And this is why I say that water quality is also a women's issue. It disproportionately impacts women. These women are more susceptible to human trafficking, sexual assault, things like that. And so in my paper, I outlined roles in which we as people and as citizens can help to mitigate the water issue. And I apologize for that slight noise. If you can hear that, that's my alarm. I talked about a K article in which Coca-Cola is trying to embolden young women and help uplift them so that they can be empowered, and how they are trying to promote partnerships with these young women to provide education and water quality for them, to empower them and uplift them out of this cycle of poverty. Water is not just a gender issue or a women's issue. It's an issue that impacts everyone. And I've learned so much with this paper, and I really just hope to utilize what I've learned to those around me and really stand up for water. because everyone deserves it.